It's a European Thursday. What a night in store. Rangers kick off in Poland, while Hearts have travelled to Portugal to take on the mighty Benfica. Hello, I'm Jonathan Sutherland, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Thursday the 6th of August. A huge night ahead for Scotland's clubs in Europe.
It is 2-0 to Storm Graz, and Hearts' Champions League dreams long ago shattered.
Asgard, it breaks, he shoots and scores! A fabulous goal!
Rangers and Hearts both on the road in Europa League qualifying. Can Derek McInnes' side do the business in Białystok?
It's going to be a tough game, there's no two ways about it. Jagiellonia are a team who need respect. We will have to play well over two legs to qualify.
And after a tough start to the season, will there be any stadium of light at the end of the tunnel for Hearts?
How ready can you be against a side like Benfica? Of course, I think it's a challenge for sure, and it's also an opportunity to show how we can stick together, work together, and try to do something also with the ball.
Hibs and Motherwell also in action. A big day ahead for Scottish clubs in Europe.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
I'm delighted to say we are joined this morning by Andy Halliday and Cammy Bell. Andy, I remember Scott Allen referring to you as Andrew recently, which obviously was kind of weird for a lot of us. Maybe not so much for you, but I'm still reeling from yesterday's Radio Scotland breakfast when Dick Campbell revealed that his entire family call him Richard. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm really hoping that the Andrew doesn't stick. That's got to be said. Dick Campbell's actually produced my favourite moment of Scottish football this year when he said in one of the League Cup games that his team was playing a 4-5-3 going into the game. So I think if Hearts have got any slight chance of a result this weekend, it might need to be a similar formation against Benfica, it's got to be said.
Good old Richard Campbell, only he could pull that one off. Cammy Bell, I take it you were christened Cameron.
I certainly was, Jonathan.
And I've got to ask you, Cammy, I know you're big personal pals with Calvin Harris. Were you backstage at Hampden Park?
I was there on Saturday night and it was excellent, Jonathan. Brilliant.
Excellent. Wow. And you're fully recovered for this?
Fully recovered and ready to go for Thursday night of European football.
Great stuff. Hibs and Motherwell are in action this evening, but if you want a full preview of those matches, then you can check out yesterday's podcast on BBC Sounds. We will be focusing on Rangers and Hearts. Let's kick off with Rangers. They are away to Jagiellonia Białystok, the Polish side this evening. Rangers starting their league campaign with that 1-1 draw against Dundee United at Tannadice. What have you made, Andy Halliday, of Rangers' start to this season in these very early stages?
Yeah, it was obviously a really poor opener against Dundee United. I thought it was a game that really highlighted the deficiencies that Rangers have in certain areas of the pitch. And I think that result on Friday's almost kicked them into overdrive. I think from Friday to what is now Thursday morning, I think Rangers have obviously signed one winger. They've been linked with another 3 or 4, with reports being quite strong. They've submitted bids on a couple others. So I think that highlighted a couple of key areas where Rangers are really lacking at this moment in time. And they've tried to react swiftly to go into this game. I think it's hugely positive news that Daisuke Yokota and McCanny have both got their visas approved, so they're both available for the game tonight. I think that makes them a bit stronger going into the game than they were certainly on Friday night there.
Cammy, what do you make of this Rangers shape right now? Because there was a lot of clamour, I think, for 2 up front, and maybe a slight surprise against Dundee United that wasn't really the case. Nadiri started, Shankland as well, but Nadiri was kind of more out wide right. A lot of people surprised that Yusuf Chermiti didn't start up front with Lawrence Shankland. What do you expect in terms of that from Derek McInnes this evening? Tough away match, obviously, against the side that finished third in the Polish league.
Yeah, listen, it's an away match, Jonathan. I was a little bit surprised on Friday night by the shape. Certainly the personnel surprised me more than anything on Friday night. So, yeah, listen, I would like to see 2 up front. Do I think they'll play 2 up front tonight away from home? Possibly not. But Andy mentioned it before, the deficiencies for Rangers, we've known it for a while, is the wide areas. They've really struggled in the wide areas. You sign a striker of Lawrence Shankland's quality, and you know what he gives to you in the box as goals. And for me, they've not got the players to provide that. Yes, they've signed Yokota, who it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. It's, as Andy mentioned, it's great that he's got his visa and he's available for the game, and you would expect him to play some sort of part in the game. But listen, Rangers just need to get a positive result tonight. That's the main thing. They need to try and get a positive result, obviously to take back to Ibrox to give themselves a chance of progressing in this tie.
Andy, I don't know if you've had a chance much to see Daisuke Yokota's highlights reel so far. I had a quick glance at it myself. He seems to be a sort of right-sided player, but likes to cut in a lot on his left foot. He spent a lot of time in German football. How high are your expectations?
Well, I've learnt lessons in watching YouTube compilations because they managed to make me look pretty good. So I'll reserve my judgment till tonight and further games. But it's certainly a profile, a player that Rangers have needed. I think Derek McInnes has always preferred that inverted winger, someone playing with their stronger foot on the opposite side. And obviously Rangers don't have that with anyone in the right wing that's left-footed that can cut in, whip crosses in towards the goalkeeper. So I think it's a profile they've tried to match. But for the little clips that I did watch, certainly looks very diminutive, great balance, great pace, and again, probably 2-3 attributes that I do think Rangers really have to try and strengthen within their squad that they've managed to do so. But it has to be said, I still think they're at least one or two wingers short to make that area of the pitch really, really competitive. Still think they probably need another centre-half, another left-back. So I think, as you know, there's plenty of clubs in our domestic league that are going to be pretty busy from now to the end of the window, and I think Rangers are going to be one of them. But the most important thing that they never managed to do on Friday night is, while you're still trying to build your squad, you have to try and pick up these results, none more so in a knockout competition. You know, they've only got 2 legs against Jagiellonia. The first one being away, which is obviously going to be it should be more difficult than what the return leg at Ibrox is going to be. But it's a game that I fully expect Rangers to win. You know, I think they've played against Polish outfits over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, I was at the football club when they played Legia Warsaw. Managed to win that in the last minute at Ibrox to qualify. I actually played against Jagiellonia during my hiatus in Azerbaijan, shall we call it. And at that moment in time, it was Killian Sheridan that was Jagiellonia's striker, so there was a bit of familiarity in terms of domestic players there as well. And I think you know what you're going to get. I think any team in Poland, they're always backed by a brilliant crowd. But Rangers, for me, should have far too much quality for Jagiellonia on the night.
Talking about that Jagiellonia game, Andy, because I was having a look, and as you mentioned, I think Killian Sheridan spent a couple of seasons there. Ziggy Gordon, ex of Hamilton Accies, he was at Jagiellonia maybe 10 years ago or something like that as well. In that match against Jagiellonia, what were they like? Did you have a chat with Killian on the pitch?
Yeah, so in terms of the team on the pitch, they were pretty combative. They were well organised. But on that given night, I thought we controlled that particular game. But the big thing I kind of took away from it, that I've done so any time I've played against a Polish side away from home, is they're always fantastically backed by their crowd. You know, it's a great atmosphere, and it's almost a kind of 12th man. And where Polish teams seem to strive in Europe at times is that kind of home record and home form. But you know, on the given night, I didn't think they had amazing quality. Certainly, I'm expecting Rangers to have a lot more. And I don't know if you know Killian that well, Jonathan, but he's not exactly the loudest character in the world. So in terms of chats, I certainly couldn't hear him if I did chat with him with the crowd that's behind him.
Cammy, there's a lot of fascination I feel about this transfer window. I really feel it's still to ignite properly, and I think there's always a tipping point, I feel like, with the transfer window, and we're not quite there yet. It'll probably happen with maybe, I guess, a week to go, 10 days, something like that. Something big will happen and there'll be a domino effect. For the time being, Nico Raskin is still a Rangers player. He's with the Rangers squad. Derek McInnes says he's available to play tonight. I mean, that's got to be a huge boost, first and foremost, for Rangers for this match tonight.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Again, it's a player that's come off the back of playing a lot of minutes at the World Cup for a top side as well. So, listen, having Nico Raskin available is positive for Rangers. Again, we don't know what sort of condition he is. He only had a few weeks off. Hopefully he's fully fit, and Derek McInnes has kind of lent towards that. He's ready to play. So, yeah, listen, we'd expect him to play a part in the game because he is a quality player. Listen, there's no getting away from it. You don't play for Belgium if you're not a good player. He is a Rangers player at this moment in time. Whether he will be at the end of the transfer window, I probably doubt that. He will be there. I think he'll move on for probably a good sum of money. But while you've got him, you've got to use him. This is a massive match. Andy mentioned it before that Rangers need to progress through this. They really do. They need to get a positive result to make it an easier job back at Ibrox. There's that negativity from the start of the season, that game against Dundee United. It wasn't the way that everyone's seen it. Almost felt like watching Rangers last season again. So they've got to step up tonight and show what they can do, and again try and please the fans to get a positive result back to Ibrox for the following tie next week.
Sticking with the transfer theme, Andy, are Rangers almost in a bit of a sense of limbo right now in terms of the transfer market? I know they're doing business, but obviously if Nico Raskin was to depart, it would be for mega money. It would really shift the parameters as far as what Rangers could then use that money for to bring in to the club, couldn't it?
Yeah, I said a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan, that I think Nico Raskin, leaving the club, I actually think it's best for all parties. I think he's off the back of a fantastic World Cup, a decent season himself personally. I think Rangers have not done a good enough job over the years of selling players when their stock's probably at their highest. They keep talking about this player trading model. I think Nico Raskin's stock, is probably at its highest at this moment in time. And it's an area of the pitch where Rangers have heavily invested over the summer, probably with one eye in mind thinking that they're going to lose Nico Raskin this summer. So I think it's best for all parties that they get that money in an area where they're pretty strong at this moment in time in terms of numbers, and they try and reinvest it in areas where they're not as particularly strong. For example, the two wider areas in the central defender's position. But I didn't envisage that it would drag on as much as it has. I completely understand that when the World Cup's on and international football competitions going on, it's a lot more difficult to get these deals done. But I mean, when did Belgium get knocked out of the World Cup? It must be going on a month now, 5 weeks. And there's been reports that your Villarreals and whatnot submitting bids for Nico Raskin. So I was expecting it to probably be resolved at this moment in time. And I think that's probably the best for Rangers because they can then use the next 3-4 weeks to, like you say, try and identify other targets. But it's not been done so far. I think it's useful that he's available in these ties, but I don't really see how fit he's going to be. I think he's only been back training for kind of 3-4 days, so I don't actually see him playing a massive part within it. I think the priority for Rangers and Nico Raskin is, you try and get his future resolved and ultimately let him move on.
Rangers have travelled to Poland for this match. Let's travel to the land of hypotheticals, Andy, for a moment. If Nico Raskin does go for mega money, and there was speculation about Lewis Ferguson earlier in the transfer window, I think reports that there had been contact between Rangers and Bologna. Does that seem realistic to you, or given what you've just said, do you feel that Rangers are strong enough in that midfield area, even if they do lose Raskin?
Well, I think for the money you're going to have to reinvest into Lewis Ferguson. I don't think it makes that much sense to me, given how many players they have in that position. So if Lewis Ferguson was, identified to still come into the football club, then it means you would have to sell a Chutwani, a Conor Barron, a Diamande. There has to be somebody else moving on for that position, because at this moment in time, I think Rangers have arguably 8, 9, 10 players that can play in that position. So I don't think you can have that many players on good wages, you'd imagine, at the football club and be able to keep them all happy. So I think there's going to have to be another couple of players moved in that position for Lewis Ferguson to come in. I've said for a long time, I actually don't see the Lewis Ferguson thing happening anyway. I think it's probably too far out of Rangers' reach in terms of transfer value. And when you see the clubs that Lewis Ferguson is linked with, in Italy, there's still rumours of Juventus and Roma and Napoli. I think Lewis Ferguson definitely wants to be a Rangers player one day, but I think when you've still got Italian giants linked with your signature, then I think that makes that a bit more unrealistic at this moment in time.
There's bound to be a lot of suitors. Cammy, I mean, if Arnie Engels leaves Celtic, they might be looking for a midfielder.
Yeah, listen, I don't know again. I don't think that one would happen.
That would be a story and a half.
It certainly would be, but I think Andy's right. Listen, you've got to be realistic. You look at all the Italian giants that he's linked with. Is it going to happen for Rangers? I very much doubt it at this moment. Yes, he wants to play for the club at some point. It's probably slightly too early in his career and where he's at, because he's done so well since he's moved over there, and he probably deserves that that big, huge move to a giant European team, and I think he will get that before he eventually comes back to Rangers in years to come. But I just think it's out with Rangers' reach at the moment with regards to the transfer fee, and Andy's right, they're top heavy in that centre midfield place. Even if Nico Raskin leaves, for me, I think they need another centre half. I really do. I think they're weak there, and it's somewhere that already we can identify they're losing goals, and I think that'll be a theme if they don't resolve that position.
Quick prediction for Rangers against Jagiellonia Białystok tonight, Andy?
I think it will be 1-1. I think Rangers at their strongest go over and win in Poland. I think at this moment in time, really early on the season, still got plenty of business to do. But I still envisage they'll get a positive result. So I see a 1-1 draw.
Cammy?
I'm going to go a little bit more positive. 1-0. I think they'll sneak a 1-0 win.
Sports Sound on air, 4:30 on BBC Radio Scotland. Let's move on to Hearts. They are up against Benfica. It is a huge challenge after what's been a hugely challenging start to the season for the Edinburgh club. Potentially a fourth defeat in 4. I mean, it's a huge task tonight, Cammy. At what point does it kind of get the alarm bells sounding?
Certainly not after tonight for me. I think you look at Benfica and they're a top European side, so you've got to be realistic in who they're playing here. Again, Hearts need to go over there being positive. Can they try and take some sort of positive? They don't want to write this game off and take the out of the tie. They want to be competitive, but it's going to be so difficult. We know how strong Benfica are. I think it was 6-2 they ended up beating St Gallen to progress, so they're a good European side. They're very experienced. They've got an experienced manager in Marco Silva. So listen, they're up against it tonight. They need to hang in there because this is a rocky part of the season for them. It wasn't ideal at the weekend what happened against Aberdeen, and them 2 late goals are really damaging. But listen, I wouldn't judge them too much on tonight because they're playing top opposition.
Yeah, Greek striker Evangelos Pavlidis, he scored 30 goals in all competitions for Benfica last season. I think he got 4. I think against St Gallen over the 2 legs. They're obviously a club with incredible pedigree, Andy Halliday, and yeah, I don't think anybody much is expecting Hearts to come away with a victory from the Stadium of Light tonight. But in the grander scheme of things, you know, they've got Dundee United at the weekend, and obviously Benfica back at Tynecastle next week. I mean, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but I mean, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if that was, after all that, maybe 6 defeats, which is, it's just such a contrast, isn't it? And it feels like the hangover from the highs of last season and the ultimate disappointment still lingers in the air around Tynecastle.
And I think inevitably there was going to be a hangover, Jonathan, but there has to be a sense of realism of what's took place so far. I mean, they've lost 2 Champions League qualifiers against Sturm Graz, and then they lost the opening league game in a stadium where they've not won in 10 years. So I think, you know, Hearts, you just use the phrase they've lost 3 games in a trot. Obviously it doesn't sound great, but then you fling in that they're about to play Benfica. I mean, we've bemoaned our Scottish teams in Europe for years and some of the disappointing results and performances and poor showings we've had. I mean, what chance have Hearts got that they lose a Champions League qualifier against Sturm Graz and they drop down a competition to play Benfica in the next round? You actually look at the ties across. I think Motherwell have got a really difficult tie. I think Hearts have got a difficult tie. It's probably Hibs out of the 4 clubs that I think probably have the most favourable tie to go through. But I see, to be honest, I've got the fear. I've got the fear for Hearts tonight. I do really think it could be because I think in Scotland we've got the most incredible football fans in the world. I truly believe that. But we're a fickle bunch and we're a highly expectant bunch, and I put myself in that bracket as well. But for Hearts' perspective, there's almost got to be a free hit for the players. And all you're hoping for is real fight, real desire to try and make it as competitive a game as possible. And I think the one criticism I would give probably about a Franken's team so far is I think they look a wee bit fragile defensively, and they've got the most acid test tonight to probably use that as I mean, it's certainly not a training game, that's for sure, but use that as a kind of real practice that this side of the game is something that we have to do extremely well today. Where you look at the 2 Sturm Graz games, you look at the Aberdeen games, they've had loads of possession, they've looked good at times in possession, but out of possession they've looked really poor. So I think, like he says, this is an either where they're going to be really tested tonight and they want to kind of show themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Jamestown Analytics, it's had a lot of great kudos, obviously, Cammy, for what was achieved last season. And obviously, we're just in the embryonic early days of this season. It's difficult to read too much into anything, and there's a lot of the transfer windows still to come. Is there too much expectation from fans for the Tony Bloom model? I mean, Hearts, they're not like really Union Saint-Gilloise or Como or even Brighton and Hove Albion in terms of expectation with those clubs. I think Union Saint-Gilloise were in the second tier of Belgian football. Como have risen through the ranks in Italian football. Brighton and Hove Albion similar in English football, although they become a fixture in the Premier League. But Hearts fans, the expectations are high. So is this a bit of a challenge, would you say, for the Tony Bloom model?
Yeah, huge challenge for me. I said it last year, Jonathan. Listen, the expectation goes up, and we all know, Andy mentioned about fans being fickle. As soon as you start to do well in Scottish football, it's expected all the time. So again, they had a fantastic season last year. Almost got over the line and won the league, but they didn't quite get there. But then what comes with that, Jonathan, is generally when teams are successful in Scotland, you get headhunted, whether it's your manager, your players, your top players, they all move on. So this is a real test for Jamestown Analytics to see how it works, because ultimately Celtic and Rangers have seen it for years that they get their best players picked away from them, that they need to respond pretty quickly. So this is a massive test for Hearts, because if they want to be successful, if they want to stay at the top of Scottish football, and I'm sure all their fans do, and I'm sure Tony Bloom does for the club as well, they need to get it right. When their best players move on, Lauren Shanklin, Cammy Devlin from last year, their manager Derek McInnes, when they move on, they need to pick the right people to come in and replace them, and that's how you stay at the top of the game. So it's a big season for Jamestown Analytics and for the club in the direction that they go.
It is a mouth-watering match to kind of look forward to, I guess, if you don't worry too much, Andy, about the worst possible scenarios for Hearts this evening. And, they've got Claudio Braga, who want to be making a big impression in his homeland and all that as well. But prediction-wise, what are you thinking?
I've not got enough fingers to make a prediction, unfortunately. I think it's going to be a big scoreline, I must admit. I'm thinking at least 4-0 to Benfica.
Oh, really? That bad? Yeah. And you're a former
I just
player.
think that. Listen, I think they're a Champions League outfit. I think they've proven that over the years. They got to the playoff round in the Champions League last year. Rangers have faced Benfica more than a couple of times over the last few years and been on the wrong end of score lines. They got a couple of draws within that. But I think Hearts in the present moment, not being at their strongest either, and even if they were at their strongest, I think it's going to be a difficult evening. And unfortunately, and I really hope I'm wrong, I think it's going to be a big scoreline tonight.
Yeah, we all hope it won't be the case, but I can understand that viewpoint absolutely. When you look at Benfica, Cammy, I mean, they finished third in the Portuguese league last season, but they were actually unbeaten in the league all season. They just drew far too many games, and as Andy mentioned, they had Jose Mourinho at the helm last season. We all know about the rich European pedigree. What is your prediction? Are you expecting a sore one for Hearts tonight?
I am. I'm going to try and be a little bit more positive. I think I'm going to say 3-0. And listen, I think Hearts would probably take that. They don't want to get embarrassed tonight. Not, it could be damaging if it ends up sort of 5-6-0. It looks really bad. But again, you've got to look at the levels. Benfica are a top European side. Hearts are in a real transitional period at this moment. They've lost a lot of players. They've not had the best start of the season. But Andy's right in what he said before. Look at the teams that they've played. They've played some top opposition. They've played Aberdeen, where they don't win at Pittodrie. So we need to be a bit realistic. So I'm hoping it's not too sore a one for them tonight. But yeah, listen, I'm going to say 3-0.
Andy, will you be tapping Cammy Bell up for Calvin Harris tickets in the future?
If they're going, that's for sure. But having heard that it's backstage, he's capable of getting, then there's certainly more chance of tapping up if that's the case.
What a life you lead, Cammy. What's next? I mean, is it just Calvin Harris, or are you friends with other stars that we should know about?
No, listen, I'm actually planning to go over to Ibiza and see him before the summer finishes. So that's the next plan, Jonathan.
Seething with jealousy. Fantastic stuff. Cammy Bell, Andy Halliday, thank you very much indeed. As I mentioned, Motherwell and Hibs also in European action tonight against HJK, Helsinki and Skandia respectively. You can catch coverage of all of the matches this evening on Sports Sound of BBC Radio Scotland from 4:30. And remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. Make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Scottish Football, the gift that keeps on giving. Thanks for listening.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
He caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.